First of all, I would like to ask you about the Kursk region of the Russian Federation, because interesting things are happening there now. Officially, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine does not comment on this. Logically. But they commented on the situation in the White House, and what they say, Ukraine did not consult, did not warn the United States about the operation in the Kursk region. But they say that Ukraine has the legal right to conduct hostilities on the territory of the country that attacked us. I would like to ask you, to what extent do you really think that the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the Office of the President, did not say anything to the White House about this operation, and how realistic is the White House, the United States of America, in supporting such decisions?
A very good question, everyone asks, and I am sure that Zelensky would not have allowed this without the White House. This is 100%. Why? Because, first of all, the ATACMS finally began to arrive, albeit in small batches, so the planes have appeared, the F-16s, a dozen, and we need at least 100 or even 200 of them, and the ATACMS should be several thousand, firstly, and, unfortunately, there is still no talk about the Patriot air defense systems. These three elements are the guarantor of a successful counteroffensive by the armed forces of Ukraine. This is what we are waiting for. I return to your question. Interestingly, there are a lot of crooked and, I can't help but note, pessimistic reviews and comments from experts from the Financial Times, an influential newspaper, and the New York Times, as always, who say that, oh, Ukraine should have done this, but what can it do? Russia is still stronger, there are many more soldiers there, and Ukraine will simply lose what it could successfully use in the east, for example, where strength is needed, where help is needed. Do you know whose opinion you have? Left liberal, democratic among the Democrats, who are constantly pressuring Biden to end the wars in Ukraine and Israel as soon as possible so that the Democratic Party can come by November 5th as a party of peace. This is their slogan. And yet, I go back to the beginning of my opinion that Zelensky, of course, notified the White House of his plans, and the White House said that we do not loudly support you, but do as you see fit. I'm sure they even restricted it. They said it wasn't too necessary. And these 10 to 15 kilometers, which we are talking about today, they seem to be insignificant, but they are of great importance for two reasons. First, finally, the morale of the Ukrainian troops, the armed forces of Ukraine, is rising. After a long lull and even the surrender of a number of settlements to the barbarians, there is an opportunity to announce to the whole world that rumors that the armed forces of Ukraine are falling or dying, as you like, are premature. The armed forces of Ukraine will still show Kursk's mother where it is supposed to. And this is the first symptom, an amazing symptom. Why? Firstly, it is here, on the Sudra, that there is a gas storage facility, a huge hub that supplies gas to Europe through Ukraine. But that's one. And secondly, there is a railway line nearby, which is used by the Russian army, the so-called North Group. It is she, using this railway line, that supplies everything she needs to the east, to the Donetsk region. Therefore, this is of colossal strategic importance, and in other words, the logistics of the Russian army today is suffering losses. We'll see what other losses there are. Now it's up to Biden to give Ukraine what it needs, in the right amount. And we, you know, insist. Just a couple of days ago, I was with a congressman who is a senator, and a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. He said bluntly that yes, we Republicans are very interested, but we are working with moderate Democrats who agree with us. That is, in other words, today, more than ever, Ukraine needs the supply of those types of weapons that it has been asking for a long time and still does not receive in the required quantity. Moreover, these military equipment should be using high technology in order to compensate for what the armed forces of Ukraine are suffering from today. This is a living force. There is not enough manpower, so give the necessary weapons that can compensate for the losses of those soldiers who are not there and who are urgently needed by the armed forces of Ukraine today. This is very important. In this sense, my friends, Biden has no reason today to blame the Republicans. I will return you to April 20th, when the law was passed, thanks to the Republicans, our Speaker Johnson. A law that swallows the allocation of $61 billion in Ukraine and a new strategy. A strategy based on helping Ukraine to achieve its complete victory. This just contradicts Biden's previous strategy, which said, "We will provide assistance to Ukraine as much as we can." That's it. We should have forgotten about it, but we're not happy, guys. Why? Look, the law was adopted on April 20th. Today is August, the middle 4 months pass. And where are the promised weapons to attack at the present time?
Boris, I have another question. Please tell me, April 20th, very fine, thanks to Speaker of the House of Representatives Mike Johnson for voting. I have the following question. If the amount has not changed, why have you not voted for the same money for 7 months?
That's a good question. The fact is that the Republicans also have stooges. There are several of them, there are not so many of them, but they did not allow aid to Ukraine and Israel to pass for one reason alone. Referring to the fact that we do not have enough money ourselves, we need to resolve the issue of the border with Mexico. We have a high crime rate, in short, a number of domestic problems. Therefore, Johnson fought like a fish on ice, and what he came up with thanks to Trump. Trump says, let's offer these stooges not for free, but on credit. It will work. In other words, he says, we will compensate for what we give to Ukraine at the expense of the interest that will run up on this amount. You can imagine, but there is another rule. The president has the right to cancel the loan with his own hand. Trump says, let's give it, and then, when we win the election, we will decide what we will do with Ukraine and with this money. That was the reason. And yet, guys, let's be objective. At that time, already under Biden, for 6 months, by the way, which slowed down the provision of assistance to Ukraine, Biden had $4 billion, and he did not use them. Therefore, we had a question, and to this day there is a question, does Biden want Ukraine to win? If so, why is he pulling? Here I am again returning to the present day. Here he was scolding the Republicans for not giving money, but here he was. 4 months have passed. Why delay, guys, why delay? Why? Zelensky has repeatedly asked for air defense. You know, an outstanding general, this is generally a hero of all times and peoples. We believe that this is General Zaluzhnyi, who at one time gave a list point by point, very modestly and minimally indicating this or that type of weapons that Ukraine needs to go on the counteroffensive. Zero attention to this, and even Zelensky was forced to constantly ask for air defense, namely Patriot. If they were in the right quantity, today there would be no problems with attacks on hospitals in Kyiv, on granaries, on Odessa, on the Dnipro and many other civilian objects. It's honest, let's be objective. Therefore, today the first stunning step of Ukraine, which has entered the land of barbarians, must have urgent reinforcements, not soldiers. Ukraine has never asked for Western soldiers. You see, just give me weapons. The one that Ukraine asks for. And all problems will be solved. That's how it should be today. And we continue to lobby so that it does not happen. What does not happen today or tomorrow with these internal elections? You know, so I'm proud of what guys, I can't help but say this, an amazing publication. This is our magazine, which published a plan for Ukraine's victory, written by Pompeo, the same Mike Pompeo who was the director of the CIA and then the Secretary of State in the Trump team. It is he who is today, I will say this for many who do not yet know, Trump's official advisor. So, the publication of the plan for Ukraine's victory could not have been without Trump's knowledge. It could not have been ruled out. Do you understand? This is in response to those who to this day demonize Trump, who frighten the Ukrainian people not only with the Republican Party, but also with the name of Trump. Don't believe them, guys, it will never happen. Trump, he's selfish, he loves it when he wins, and he will do it. He has already said that the occupation of Ukraine is unacceptable. These are Trump's words.
Yes, Boris. Therefore, yes. And here I am, I ask a question. Yes, you said that the Democrats are going to the polls, and they are going as a party of peace. I would like to quote the words of Vice President and Republican Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance, who said that it is necessary to promote an acceptable peace. He said that we need to believe in peace and bring it to this region. And he also said the words that you are talking about, that there is not enough manpower in the armed forces of Ukraine. Here is my question, what did Duhens mean by an acceptable peace, in your opinion, and how do you think he and the Republicans see peace in the region, in Ukraine? And the next question, already for you, do you think the Republican vice presidential candidate Vance is the best option or could there be better candidates?
Как вы считаете, кандидат вице-президента от республиканцев Ванс – это оптимальный вариант или, может, были лучшие кандидатуры?
A very good question, a sore point for me personally. I'll tell you frankly, it's not that easy. I will be extremely objective. We, who are we? This is us, the Reagan wing of the Republican Party. These, I will name the names that you know well. This is Mike McCall, Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Mike Rogers, Chairman of the Arms Committee, and Mike Turner, Chairman of the Intelligence Committee. I'm not talking about Senator Lindsey Graham, who has been to Ukraine more than once. I'm not talking about Senator Cato, who stands up for Ukraine. There are many other well-known senators who are for Ukraine, not just for Ukraine, but for victory, for the return of lands to the borders of 1991. Therefore, to be honest, we were dissatisfied, and this dissatisfaction still exists. I'll tell you why. They are dissatisfied with the fact that Trump chose Vance. Despite the fact that Vance is young, educated, served in the U.S. Navy and is a senator, moreover, he grew up in a poor family, his mother was a drug addict. That is, his biography deserves respect. But that's not the question, guys. His vision of America's politics as a leading democratic power does not correspond to today's challenges. It was Vance who said that why do we need Europe? Let it deal with Ukraine, it is in Europe. Therefore, these are their problems. Let's focus on Southeast Asia, on China. This is the most important thing. These were his words. Well, I'll tell you directly, our vision is based on litmus paper, which is an indicator of attitudes towards Ukraine. If any deputy, no matter the lower or upper house, is ideal in solving the economy, crime and much more. But if he sees or looks at the war in Ukraine as not ours, not American, and I always emphasize that it is our war, because it is Ukraine that stood in the way of these barbarians. Putin hates America more than Ukraine. It was Ukraine that stood up with its chest, said, "You will not pass." If any deputy does not understand this, he has no right to be in the leadership of the country. Therefore, we were terribly disappointed with everything we lobbied. We really wanted him to take Nikki Haley. For many reasons, Trump today is convinced that we are right. Why? As soon as Harris came to the forefront, you see, the same positive rating that Trump earned after the happy end of the assassination attempt on him began to fall with the appearance of Harris. Today, it has not only caught up with him in the polls, especially in swing states, but even surpasses him in some of them. Let it be 2 to 3%, this is within the arithmetic error. But the fact itself suggests that this is an alarming signal, you know. Something needs to be done urgently. Otherwise, we will lose. Therefore, I am answering the main question. My opinion on who will win on November 5th, my opinion is 50-50 today. But time will pass, this may change in favor of Harris. For many reasons. The first reason. Nikki Haley would be, I'll go back to why I'm talking about things that didn't happen, but there are positives. I'll go over to you and end my thought with a positive one. So Nikki Haley, if she were Vance today, the first thing she would do would be to lead, first, the votes of the independents. It is the independents who decide the fate of elections, the fate of any presidential candidate. I always repeat to you, and I will repeat today, with a population of 330 million, we have 42 million Democrats, 36 million Republicans and 32 to 33 million independents.
36 миллионов у нас республиканцев и 32 до 33 миллионов у нас независимых.
Therefore, I will repeat once again, in our history, we have not had a case when one or another president won, limiting himself to the votes of only his own party. Therefore, today the voices of independents are oxygen. It is impossible to win with other votes. Why do I associate this with Nikki Haley? Because it still prevails on a national scale over both Biden, his team, and Trump by 17% or more. Can you imagine at the expense of what? Due to the fact that its electorate includes 25% of Republicans, the rest are independents. Plus, she is a woman. Can you imagine, if she were vice president today, she would balance the effect of Harris's gender. Easily, this woman and this woman. Moreover, she is a woman of color, and Nikki Haley is the second generation of immigrants from India. Imagine, moreover, one of the main questions in choosing a particular candidate for the average person on November 5th will be the question of abortion. It is the cornerstone, very important, Sir Nikki Haley is more liberal towards women in this. She says, "I am a woman, I have a daughter, and in other words, I am in favor of introducing some restrictions on abortion, but at the same time it is necessary to give women space and the right to choose in decision-making." It would attract the votes of millions of women who don't like Trump today. Therefore, these two factors would help Trump win over both independents and women, and neutralize Harris, which, as practice shows, is no longer possible. It is gaining momentum, it is gaining speed. This is alarming. As for Vance, it is very important, firstly, that the Vice President, even if Trump wins with Vance, is not involved in solving international problems in America, period. The exception is Dick Cheney under Bush, but Bush was narrow-minded, and Dick Cheney, as Vice President, took over many international problems and put our country in enormous danger in terms of economy and image by starting the war in Iraq. This happened, it remains in our memory, it is unforgivable. As for Trump and Vance, the Vice President traditionally does not deal with foreign policy issues. On the other hand, Trump will not allow it, he is a decision-maker. It is Trump who will decide where, whom, when. I want to bring you back to his speech at our Congress, where it was clear and unequivocal that Trump says, "I am for peace, but with a demonstration of force." I am for peace, passing our power, our strength through the prism of political problems. This is very important. Therefore, if I were you, and in addition, there is another character trait of the same Vance, he is changeable. In 2016, he compared Trump to a fascist, to Hitler, and so on. Then he changed, became fascinated by Trump and began to gradually change his views. And Trump will not allow him to speak contrary to the strategy that Trump intends to implement, God willing, after victory. Therefore, in this regard, there is no need to be afraid, please do not be upset, he is not the main one here, Trump is the main one. And Trump, giving a signal to the international community and domestic consumption, through the mouth of Mike Pompeo. This is very important. The plan is amazing, it's what Ukraine has needed since day one, but better late than never. I hope that it will have power and it will work.
Yes, Boris, of course, I would like to ask you about what is happening in the Middle East now, and about the fact that Shoigu was flying, and that Reuters allegedly reports that Putin, through Shoigu, conveyed to Iran a request not to escalate the situation. To what extent do you see this? How will the situation in the Middle East develop?
Well, this is. On the one hand, Putin is helping Iran. Moreover, he is the main architect of the events of October 7th. This is according to his plan, it all happened, there is no doubt about it, with one goal, to divert the attention of Western countries, that is, all of America, from Ukraine and immerse them in Middle Eastern problems. That's what he wanted. Unfortunately, he succeeded in something in this regard. Indeed, aid to Ukraine has plummeted, and public opinion has changed. There was a period when we did not talk about Ukraine at all, it was more than a month. Neither CNN, nor Fox News, and these only spewed negativity. The New York Times, for example, or the Washington Post express the same thing, and with a hint, constantly openly saying that it is necessary to end the war, Ukraine is not coping, there is no longer enough manpower, it is better to leave what Ukraine has today, give the rest to Putin and negotiate. And it is no accident, my friends, that today from the cornucopia the plans of the world are pouring from the right and then from the left. And who just doesn't offer it today? And all of a sudden, China emerged, you see, from 6 points. And this is garbage, not a plan. Because China, I remember, at the beginning of the war, proposed its peace plan and mediation, and the plan included 12 points, the first of which, I remind you, were the borders generally recognized by the world community and inviolable. This was just the case in 1991 with regard to the borders of Ukraine. Today, in this regard, in the new Chinese, there is not a word about it. Nonsense. Such a peacemaker is not needed, absolutely not. Therefore, I return to this issue. What end of the war do we see in the elite in Ukraine? There is a struggle. It is hidden. There is no open discussion, absolutely not. What struggle? The struggle between those who say that we have invested a lot in Ukraine. We deserve to help Ukraine so much that Ukraine wins and throws out the barbarians. This is on the one hand. And others say, wait, firstly, it seems that Ukraine is not coping. How much can you help? We have already spent more than 100 billion, including humanitarian aid. I don't know what their calculations are, but they talk about it all the time. They say they spent 113 billion. This did not have an effect, that's the first thing. Secondly, which is more terrible than the first, they say, listen, but why? Why do we need to remove Putin? After all, we've been with him for more than 20 years, okay? We know how to negotiate with him. At the very least, it was under Obama, for example. And absurdly, it was a devastating negotiation. Do you remember when the reset was announced by Hillary Clinton, his Secretary of State? So imagine that they refer to this and say, you know, if we remove the Putin regime, then you don't know who will come. There is absolutely no opposition, that's one. Second, the collapse of the regime will lead to the disintegration of Russia to such an extent that territories can even go to China, which is much more terrifying than Putin. We need to prepare for war with China. And, the most frightening thing, it is unknown into whose hands nuclear weapons will fall. Maybe it will fall into the hands of Islamists. Let's think about it. It's better to finish it quickly. Moreover, they refer to the recession. Now the recession will break out. Look at what is happening on the stock market. What are you for? And here this team is ours. Namely the firm support of Ukraine in Congress, these three mics, led by the Speaker, and Trump. But you can ask me why Trump does not say this out loud, personally. Unfortunately, I'll take you back to today's polls. Trump is not winning their state advantage within the margin of error. Why? I've talked about independents. There's another group, even among Republicans, mixed with those who aren't decided along party lines, for example, haven't registered yet. There are about 10 to 15 million of them. This group is still undecided for one reason. She says that this group believes that for us, and I quote, internal problems are more important. Israel, Ukraine, that's later. Where is Ukraine and where is Israel? And here we are. We need to close borders, we need to fight crime, commodity prices are rising, inflation and recession are expected. Enough. We can't tolerate this, let's do this. Therefore, Trump is cunning, he is a strategist, he says through his assistants, this is how it should be, this is how it should be, he never says it himself, he avoids it. A couple of times he jumped out when he said that Putin is evil. The first expression was. The second was that the annexation of Ukraine is unacceptable. That's very important. He got it out. And that was at the debate. If you remember, at the debate with Biden, the host cornered Trump twice, asking this question again. He avoided answering. Then he blurted out, "He is not acceptable." She said, "Tell me, is the occupation of Ukraine acceptable?" He said no. No and no. That was his answer. Therefore, I say again, he is not sure that he will win. Each vote is worth its weight in gold. These 10 minus 15 million, they can decide its fate. Let me remind you that in 2020, Biden won 82 million votes. Trump lost to him, gaining 75 million. Today, Trump is supported by a little more than 60 million. It's not enough, guys. Today, there are more people eager to come to the polls than it was in 2020, much more. And it is not for nothing that I gave you the numbers of those registered in this or that party. So, imagine, the overwhelming majority of Democrats will come to the polls and vote only for Harris, only for her. They are so processed, so fanatically devoted to their party values, that they will never change their party. That's the first thing. They are the majority, compared to the Republicans. Republicans, in turn, will also overwhelmingly come to vote for Trump. And that won't be enough, either, because if you leave these two parties face to face, the Republicans will lose. Therefore, independent people are needed. So, this number also includes the very 10 to 15 million that Trump really needs. He will not say anything until the elections. He must win, and then he will take off his gloves. And he has only one term. One has already passed. Here is the last second term. And if he wins, he has nothing to lose. He will openly announce his platform. The same one that was published by L'Ossi Journad, Mike Pompeo. This is how we count on it, so that evil will be eliminated in this world. First of all, of course, the aggressor, the one who came to mine, to our land. Thank you very much. That's right, guys, we will definitely win. There is no way back. The whole question is the price. This is the whole question. Therefore, we are lobbying that the sooner the war ends with the victory of Ukraine, the more opportunities we have to get together, solve internal problems and start helping Ukraine in its reconstruction.
Правильно, совершенно верно. Ребята, мы победим. Обязательно. Обратно дороги нет. Весь вопрос в цене. В этом весь вопрос. Поэтому мы и лоббируем. Чем быстрее война закончится с победой Украины, тем больше у нас возможностей собраться, решать внутренние проблемы и начать помогать Украине в ее восстановлении.
These are our plans. Let me remind our viewers that Boris Pincus was with us. Please comment, like and share our conversation. My name is Ihor Havryshchak. See you on Channel 24.